Again, this is a post that was put up on July the 1st of this year, but it came to my attention yesterday after we had done the class relative to the inheritance and how we talked about, again, how you cannot abstract or dumb down the term inheritance as it relates to Ecclesiastes 7:11. We went over that yesterday. And this is just
Right.
confirmation of that. And it added a new term, now see, that I just saw, that autochthonous. I just, or au- au- autochthons, rather, autochthons. But we're going to see that as I prepared that, I didn't even notice that until right now. But as I compare but this is going to be a continuous line as we continue forward. It's going to be part and parcel of what we talk about today and how we nail this thing down today. So, looking at a few details, the young lady Michelle Queen that posted this put up in capital letters the cost of integration. The cost of integration. Now, this is a good post, but again, that's human thought. That's human thought, Nasi.
Uh-huh.
Because I want you all to follow me now. Because this is the ancestors really showing us this. Now, America achieved independence on what date?
July 4th,
Of what year?
1776.
1776. So that means I want you all to follow me. Let's just do the
Right.
math. Let's just do the math. So that means America is roughly less than 300 years old, right?
Right.
Because in 1976, they had the uh, centennial celebration, or what do they call it? The bicentennial, right? 19,
200 years. Right.
right.
Right. Bicentennial. Right.
The bicentennial. The bicentennial
Mm-hmm.
was 200 years,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Right.
1976 wasn't that too long, wasn't too long ago. But in 1976, they were only 200 years old. Want you all to follow me. In 1910, according to the USDA census, 1910, America is less than 200 years old. And our people own 20 million acres of land, Nazi, just in the South. And you mean to tell me that now we only own 1% of that land, and that has anything to do with something that is not supernatural going on?
Right.
You can't tell me you can lose 20 million acres that fast because of some laws and legislation. I understand it's a part of it. There's something else going on here, Nasi.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I cannot give another man 100% credit for dispossessing me, of totally dispossessing
Right. Right.
my inheritance, of my inheritance. I can't do that.
No.
Now, understand, since 1776, how many wars were fought? How many wars America fought? First of all, Nasi, just on American soil. The Indian Wars, French and Indian Wars, all of that. The Civil War, World War One, World War Two, constantly. And you mean to tell me, with all that attention to war, I can be dispossessed almost entirely of a land inheritance. Don't make no sense. I can't put that under integration. This has to be something energetic. I want you all to write that down. Energetic, spiritual. This can't be no flesh, simply a flesh and blood thing. We must learn that black miseducation is the backbone of white domination. I don't even want to put white domination there because I don't even want to focus on that. I know something else is dominating. And it's not just the white man. It has to be something in me, family. It has to be that my ego is dominating. I'm going to prove this to you. I see my ego has been put on the throne. And the source of my power, which is my id, my true id entity, has been subverted. It has been put energy, the energetic aspect, the subconscious, divinity has been, the divine aspect of me has been demoted and subverted. And the ego has been put on the throne and the crown put on that aspect of me. That is what is ruling, family. That is what is dominating. If we look at this thing in any other terms, I'm telling you, we will not succeed on this mission that we're on. We will fail. We will experience, Nasik, total failure. Black and white is dualistic. We are still in human thought. We are still viewing things from a human perspective. All right? We're going to continue on. In order, we said yesterday, in order to complete this assignment, this divine assignment that we volunteered for, we're going to have to access and activate divine power in order to do it. We won't be able to do this, Nasik, by legislation. I'm not saying legislation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely not. It has to be divine power.
Right. I'm not saying that legislation will be completely excluded, but it will play a very minor role in all of this. We have to identify ourselves. And when I mean that, we have to identify our divine selves and focus our attention and intention upon that, and that exclusively. Are you all with me? So
yes,
we trace from the magician card, we trace etymologically these terms, this term. We won't go over those, but it just refers to our divine power, which is magic, which is the science and art of causing change to occur. I want us to write that down if we're taking notes. The science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will, in conformity with my will, my desire, my intent.
the science and what?
The science and art, A-R-T, of causing change, of causing change to occur in conformity with the will. And I want to highlight this word change, all right? because change has to do with transition, and we must make a transition. We looked at Hebrews 2, 3, and 4, which embody this definition of magic. And I'm saying magic, Magick, with the K on the end, because it differentiates between performance magic, prestidigitation, creating illusions by sleight of hand, and this science of causing change in accordance to my will. That K stands for serpent power. All right, very important that we include that. So we looked at Hebrews, the second chapter and the third verse, which embodies, third and fourth verse rather, which embodies this definition of magic. How shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation, which at the first, if you're taking notes, write down the word the first as well. All of this is going to matter because our ancestors were careful to use precise language to lead us through this, which at the first began to be spoken. So again, it starts, Nasi, with language. It starts with words. And we could say magic words, all right? Or words that we empower with divine intent and power and divine energy, thus divine energy. It first began to be spoken. So the language is where you start, and was also confirmed unto us by them that heard him. So this holistic language, Nasi, this divine holistic language, was first spoken and then recognized and confirmed by hearers that it was what? Divine and holistic. Here's the important part. Here's the important part, because Nasi, the vast majority of people just stop here. And they continuously just speak and confirm things without this other part that bears witness. God also bearing them witness, both with signs and wonders, and with diverse miracles and gifts of the Holy Ghost, according to his own will. The magic part of it must be attended, or you just talking. The magic part must accompany this to give it what? Final confirmation that we have moved, that we have changed, that we have transitioned from human to divine, from dualistic to holistic. So we looked at this term magic, and we noticed that this MAGI, from an etymological standpoint, was the root. All right. And we get the word, as we follow this root, we get the word imagine. Imagine. And it means to form a mental picture of or image of. To form a mental picture.
Right.
To form an image of. We said that all of this is going to take place in the head. A picture of oneself. All right? That is an image. please check your microphones because we're getting background noise again. Make sure that you mute it if you open it up. To form a mental picture or an image of, family, please, please, please. If your microphone is open, I'm muting you because it's a lot of background noise. If you're going to open your microphone back up, please mute it because we're getting interrupted by a lot of background noise and we are recording. Genesis 1 indicates this idea of image. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Now, we see dualism here. Now, see, God and man, image of God, image of man, male and female. That's dualism.
Right.
That's dualism. So most of us image ourselves not as God, not as divine, even though we were made in his image, according to the verse. We see ourselves as less than God, male and female humans.
Right.
Exodus 20, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, nor that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Now, this is very, very important. That last part, that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Subterranean waters. Very important. We're going to get to this really quickly, family. Imagination, a mental faculty, faculty meaning ability, a mental faculty, faculty meaning ability, which forms and manipulates images. There you go. That's what I want to do. I want to form and manipulate the image of myself as a human into myself as a divine being. But it's going to take my imagination. And we pretty much now lose our imagination very early on. We have it in full power. It is holistic when we are children, very young children. We are more divine at that state of early pre-development than we are when we become adulterated. Adulterated. Write that word down. Adulterated. We'll go back and talk about that. It's not a positive word. Becoming an adult is not positive. It's not a positive thing. It moves you away, family, from divinity. Divinity is childlike. That's why they represent the cherubs as little babies.
Yeah.
With wings. The mental faculty which forms and manipulates images. I want to form this human. I want to transform it. I want to change it. I want to manipulate this human idea or concept or image of myself into a divine image of myself. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. But we're going to help ourselves along. Now, going back to this term, chthonic, where we saw, it in this picture of these individuals, farmers, melanated farmers, or auto autochthonous Americans in 1910 who owned 20 million acres of land just in the South, family. That's just in the South. And today we're dispossessed by fraud of that land till we own barely 1% of land. So now see, we're not going to spiritualize inheritance. We not
Can't do it. Can't do it.
can't do it. This is a quote that we've quoted a number of times, but we're going to go back because it uses this word chthonic depths, and we're going to trace this. The Qliphoth is a living map of what? The subconscious. Write that down. Subconscious. We're instructed, now see, not to make images of anything in heaven, but we're going to see especially anything that is in the earth beneath and in the water under the earth. What is he talking about? How many people can name me a creature that lives or inhabits subterranean aquifers, subterranean waters? Not talking about that. Not talking about that. The Qliphoth, when it's talking about these, the earth beneath and the water under the earth, it's talking about the subconscious.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Right.
I'm going to show you what that image of the subconscious image is, the divine image. It says, the very power of the darkness of the mind. That's the id. That is the X factor within us all. Write down the word id equals X factor. Id equals X. We went over this before in a previous class. The id equals the letter X. The letter X, family, corresponds numerically to the number 10. There are 10 Qliphoth. All right? This is what our ancestors set us up with. But we must know. Now, I see you was talking about knowledge attached to wisdom. This is the knowledge part. You talked yesterday about knowledge being attached to wisdom and wisdom being attached to power. This is the knowledge part. The Qliphoth, which is just referring to the subconscious, which is referring to the waters beneath, under the earth, the abyss, the pit. The Qliphoth is a place of shells, hence the meaning of the word, Qliphoth, relating, family, to the chthonic depths of the earth. Are you all with me? The chthonic depths. Of the autochthonous people of the earth and the spirit of these people, the energetic aspect of them. The Negro and the dire dilemma, continuous crisis of ego identification. That's what we're dealing with. The cartoon says a focus on the ongoing identity crisis of the American Negro. The 1600s, when they called us Indians, they called us savages. Why? Because we were the autochthonous, we were the autochthonous people of the land, the autochthons. In the 1600s, they referred to us as savages. The 1700s, it changed to native. 1800s, Negroes or niggers. 1900s, darkies. 1910, we were pickaninnies. That's when they stole our land. That's when they began to steal our land. 1920, coons. 1930, spooks. 1950, colored. 1960, Negroes. 1970, brothers. 1980, blacks. And thanks to the Reverend Jesse Jackson, coon that he is, we became referred to as Afro Americans between this time, or African Americans. Today, it's something like people of color, or whatever they want to say. Through the years,
Wow.
the black race has been known by many names. In the 1990s, they seized the opportunity to be officially recognized in an undeniably honest way. It should be undeniably dishonest way, with the collective title African Americans. Now, defining this word, autochthonous, and it has that CHTON at its core. And
yeah.
it's talking about an inhabitant of a place, indigenous rather than descended. Indigenous rather than descended. Very important knowledge, family, of the ascent.
Very, very important.
Here's how we've been fooled. They've been appealing to our ego all the time with the power to define.
Yes, yes.
Negro seem to be better for some people than colored. A brother better than Negro. Black better than this, better than that. All of these things, I don't care what you call yourself, from the tribe of Shabazz, and a Muslim, a 5%er, a Hebrew Israelite. Well, all of that is ego. And it is not focusing on the energetic nature, the organic nature of you. And it will not free you, will not liberate you, not at all. Now, see, it can get you close to that, but no cigar, no inheritance, no inheritance. I don't care what you call yourself. No inheritance. Let me ask you a question. Did they kill savages?
Hey.
Did they kill natives? Did they kill and dominate niggers? They still doing it. So I don't care what
Still
you
doing
call yourself. You have not recognized, not identified with your divinity. 100%.
Could not have.
Could not
Could
have.
not have.
Could not have. That's why you still catching hell.
That's right.
Serious talk. Autochthonous. Indigenous rather than descended. That's what we are and were originally. Indigenous rather than descended from migrants or colonists. That's why we identify ourselves with the white man so much, with the aberrant man so much. It was an inversion, Nasi. It was an inversion. For what?
Yes.
The descent. And it was enhanced by in America by this melting pot relationship, this mixing. We're gonna see this
Yeah.
mixing together.
Yeah.
And it really mixed us up. And
Yeah. Yeah.
this is why we're so confused at this particular time now. And we're going to remain confused because we're in the ego, not in the divinity. The ego
Yeah.
now is all of these names for one thing.
Right.
And the list goes on. The list to hit the floor. Black Muslim, African Hebrew Israelite, Christian, Southern Baptist, Catholic, whatever you want to call yourself. That is diversity.
Doesn't matter.
That is dualism. You are one thing. You are one thing.
That's correct.
Divine perspective. And we must focus on that. All the rest of this stuff is foolishness and confusion. And now see, it innervates your energy. You turn your own energy. You turn your own energy against you.
Yeah.
You'll never rise. Never rise. All that stuff, I'm black and I'm proud and all that kind of stuff, that was for your ego. It was needed to wake you up. But that's all it was. It was a wake-up call. But the transition has to be back to what you are and were originally. And family, that is one thing, one id entity. And it exists in the subconscious. It exists in the underworld. Chthonic means concerning, belonging to, or inhabiting the underworld. Now, see, that's why I said don't image yourself, don't imagine yourself during the fall in Exodus 20. I'm not going to allow you to imagine yourself as what you truly are. You got to
truly are, right.
You got to live out the human experience. You got to live out the human experience. So no, don't make these images that speak to your subconscious. Y'all got to hear me.
Yes.
These are the ancestors speaking to you, speaking to us, family. The time is now. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you another post, if I can find it, that was put up on Facebook. And the sister Nasi is saying the same thing I'm saying with the same urgency.
It was a sister saying this, huh?
It was a sister, yeah. But a sister put this up, and another sister was put up another post that I'm going to show us before the class ends.
Wow.
So we're focused on the flesh and the material and the ego identification. However, Nasi, the human body is a river of intelligence, energy, and information that is constantly renewing itself, constantly changing in every second of its existence.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at these tarot cards again, the tarot card of the moon. And we've looked at this before. And now see, it shows the twin towers, a dog and a wolf. Shows the twin towers, a dog and a wolf, and the sun and the moon merged into one thing. It is the 18th tarot card. We're going to get into this once we get into the scriptures. So keep this in mind. This flows all the way through. And flow is the opposite word, operative word. The dog and the wolf symbolism is a clue, an inverted clue by our ancestors. Now, see, you turn the word dog, dog and wolf around, you get the phrase God flow. God flow. Remember, family, the human body is a river, a flowing river of intelligence, energy, and information. That's your God flow.
Right. Eitai, that's why in the book of Luke it talks about a river of water flowing up out of,
That's correct.
yeah, you know where it's at. All right.
Same imagery. Same imagery. This is related, Nasi, to the word flux, because we are in our divinity is always, it is not static. It is in a constant state of flux, constant state of continuous change.
That's flux. Right.
Flux means the action or process of flowing or flowing out. That's what you just said. That river of water will flow out of you. Right?
Yeah.
It means continuous change. Continuous change. Follow me. We are chaos beings. We are beings from the pit, from the bottomless pit. Chaos is the formless matter, supposed to have existed before the creation of the universe. Tohu vabohu. Now see, without form, void, waiting for us to do what? Define it, shape it.
Yeah.
How? With our imaginations. But you're not going to do it as an adult. You have to do it as a child. Because your adult image, Nasi, is always going to be dualistic.
Always.
Guaranteed.
Always.
Guaranteed. Continuing on, Genesis 1 and 2. And the earth, that's me, was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the waters. How? With his imagination. It's all mental. The deep is the word tehom. Tehom in Hebrew, H8415, meaning an abyss. The subconscious as a surging, flowing mass of water, especially the deep. The main sea or subterranean water. Subterranean means underground, doesn't it? It means under the earth.
Yeah.
Below. That's what we were instructed. Do not image in that now. Why? You got to complete the fall. I can't have you imagining yourself as being divine now. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does to me.
So don't image in the earth beneath or the waters under the earth. Don't image in that. But now, see, we must image in it.
Yeah.
The subconscious, not the conscious mind. That's all going to be your conscious. It is all profoundly dualistic. This tehom is referring to the underworld where you rule as God. You rule as God over in your subconscious. You rule in your divinity. You are in your pure now see, organic state.
Yeah, Eitai.
See, this gonna sound silly because I keep y'all. I don't know how y'all feel about that because I keep going to popular culture and George Clinton. But the child in me, Nasi, can see the divine in him and in his music. And the wisdom and knowledge in something family that seems cartoonish. But he was recognizing the divinity, not just in himself, but in all of us. This is why he wrote Aqua Boogie. Psycho, Alpha, Disco, Beta, Bio, Alpha, Aqua Doodloops. A motion picture underwater starring most of you loops. Put us underwater, Nasi. In the subconscious. In the subconscious. I can go into all of the symbolism here, but I won't at this time. Aqua Boogie. We talked about this. And it says you can dance underwater and not get wet, right?
Right.
That's where you're from. This is symbolism. Very profound wisdom. This is a prophet speaking. See, an adult can't understand that. A person in his adult mentality, adult perception. But a child can understand that.
Right.
It's
Right.
simple. It's very simple to a child because it's holistic. Now watch this. This is the new X-Men movie that just came out. Y'all not gonna believe this. Now see, this is the character Darwin of the X-Men First Class. You remember I told you all to write down first. See, they know who you are. They know your divine nature, and they count on you not knowing it, not picking it up. So they'll put it in a comic book. They'll put it in a movie, now see, that no adult would go to, especially serious African Americans.
Right.
And the character called Darwin, you see as a melanated individual. I just saw this movie, now see, last weekend when I went and visited my brother. And the movie was on and we watched it. And I began to decode it right away. And I just made a few statements and then we watched it. I'm going to show you the part that the ancestors showed me while I was over there. I'll show you the exact scene. And the cartoon frame has him underwater, like, you know, like George Clinton put us. And it says the day he realized he could breathe underwater if he wanted to. Well, George Clinton said this. He said, why should I hold my breath? But we can dance underwater and not get wet. Are y'all hearing me? Why hold your and he says he's talking to us, divine melanated beings, things you blow through because of things you swim through. Why hold your nose to spite your face? With the rhythm it takes to dance to what you have to live through. You can dance underwater and not get wet.
Wow.
Now they come up with Darwin. They named him Darwin. I'm going to show you why they named him Darwin. The day he realized he could breathe underwater if he wanted to. And you know, his power is the power of adaptation. The power of adaptation. That is the power of melanin, family. When this sun on the moon card, when the sun begins to shine 7 times its strength, and the moon 7 times, you better be able to adapt. This is the urgency that we're talking about.
Yeah.
You better be able to adapt. Adapt. You better be focusing on activating that melanin. Not just the skin, not just the eumelanin, which is in the skin, not just the neuromelanin, which is the inner divinity, but making those two things into one thing. The day he realized he could breathe underwater if he wanted to, it's going to be that we're going to have to realize that. The day that we realize that we are underground, underworld, chaotic beings. In other words, that our strength, all that's saying, family, is that our strength is in this subconscious aspect of us. The id, your true id entity, your true divine being is in the innermost part of you, hiding in the shadows, sleeping in the shadows, in the darkness. That is your melanin in need of activation. Makes sense? Armando Munoz, also known by his code name Darwin, we're gonna see exactly why they chose this, is a mutant superhero appearing in American comic books published by Marvel Comics. Eddie Gathegi plays the character in the film X-Men First Class. Again, you remember we just talked about and defined ourselves as being first. Autochthonous people are the first people always. First manifestation, first to emanate. After birth, Darwin's powers of self-protection, that's number one. Let me ask you, can black people, Negroes, savages, Indians, have they ever been able to protect themselves since the 1600s? No. That's the big topic with our African. That's why we run around crying Black Lives Matter. Really? Since when? Not since the 1600s. You got to activate this power. The police ain't going to protect you. They weren't designed to protect you. They was designed to catch you and to protect and serve what? The false simulated matrix. After birth, Darwin's powers of self-protection and listen, continuous circumstantial evolution. He had his God flow. His God flow was in effect, constantly changing, constantly flowing. That river, Nasi, constantly flowing with intelligence, energy, and information. This his powers of self-protection and continuous circumstantial evolution made his mother hate him. Ain't that something? They disconnect him from the mitochondrial connection of DNA right there. Tell me these people don't know our science and our arts. And they use it, they get us to use this stuff against ourselves or just to completely ignore it. And then they work their own rituals that affect us what? Subconsciously, speaking to our subconscious. The Afro-Hispanic boy was found by scientists, come on now, who experimented on him. Bringing him to the attention of the public. He was found by Mora McIntyre. Mora McIntyre, that word Mora, More, Mora, More, More, the Blackamoors, and recruited as one of her quote unquote fosters. Y'all got to see this. He was the first team, remember, first class. He was the first team, along with Kid Vulcan. Didn't we talk about the Vulcan the other day in relation to the Mr. Spock?
Yes, we did.
He was the first team, along with Kid Vulcan, Petra. Didn't we talk about this? The term Peter, Petra, the rock, the stone cut without hands, the philosopher's stone. All of this is related. And sway. Sway refers to flow. It refers to flux. It refers to being in a constant state of change. So these aren't necessarily just other separate people. They are talking about different characteristics of one concept or one idea or one subject, which is melanin, which is activated, the powers of activated melanin. Now, see, they know our science. They know our art. They know our mythology. We just don't know it. And therefore, we're constantly misidentifying ourselves and not seeing ourselves when it's right in front of our face. The word sway, again, is going to correspond and parallel with this word flow, with the word flux, continuous change, and is going to talk, because change, they changed the word change to evolve. Now see, evolution. That is why they named him Darwin. But this character is going to tell us something about ourselves. Because they attempted to disconnect him from his mother, which we know from a biological standpoint, it disconnects you from what? Your inheritance. That's why they made his mother hate him. The word sway means movement from side to side. And it also, Nasi, means controlling influence. Controlling influence. We've been under the control not only of the simulated matrix, but under the control of ego, under the control of dualism, under the control of dualistic perception, dualistic thought, human perception, human thought, under the control and dominance of our physical human body from a materialistic standpoint, from a physical standpoint, not understanding that the human body is what? A river of intelligence, energy, and information. In other words, that it is profoundly non-physical, profoundly non-energetic. But if I get you to identify as a Hebrew Israelite or a black Muslim or a Negro or a nigger or a boy or a colored person, do y'all hear me?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep the physical, the human, as your controlling influence. And you will not make the transition to divine being. You'll never do it. You'll never do it.
Never make the connection.
So we talked about this controlling influence as it related to Darwin and evolution, family, when we talked about Nasi epigenetics. And we define epigenetics meaning the control above or outside of the gene. And we ask the question, what exactly is this control above or outside of the gene? I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to put it forth. What is the control? How do you change your DNA? How do you change your genes? Where does it begin at?
In your subconscious.
Absolutely. In the temple. In the temple, Amaria. In your head. In your imagination.
What they call sanctuary.
You have to create a mental picture, a mental concept, a mental form and image of yourself as the controlling influence of all things. Epigenetics is the study of heritable changes. Now, see, we're still talking about inheritance here. Heritable changes in gene functions that do not involve changes in the DNA sequence. It is non-physical. It is energetic. The Greek prefix epi, over, outside of, around, in epigenetics implies features that are on top of, above, in addition to traditional genetic basis for inheritance. That is what Darwin put down in the first place. Do you see that they're doing a ritual by calling this brother Darwin? And keeping us in the mindset of the white man being what? In charge of everything? Do you all see this?
Yes.
We have to change that mindset. We have to change that mindset. Perception is the way you think about or understand someone or something, specifically yourself. The way you notice or understand something using one of your senses. Darwinian evolution The Darwinian evolution model taught about 1859 taught each of us, listen, to perceive or understand that genes, DNA inherited genetics, control an individual's behavior and destiny through accidental or random processes. That's why we think that we're powerless, because we were all entrained to that particular thought. We were all what? Through the uh, compulsory educational system, we were all adulterated by the same conception, and thus by the same perception of ourselves. But epigenetic talks about control above the gene, and that is only achievable, family, when we connect with the subconscious, when we perceive ourselves as chaos beings in a constant state of change and flux and flow, and that we are able to what? Shape that by our mental power, our power to imagine. That is our magic. That is our power. That is our divine power. And this is how we accomplish it. I'm going to pause right here momentarily and ask if there's any questions or comments before we move into the close. So the second part of this, as we begin to close, is going to have to do with language. We're going to tie this into language. And we often think, Nasi, that language is designed for us to communicate with somebody outside of ourselves, with someone that is external to ourselves. But the language that we're talking about, and the language that the scriptures is talking about, this unified, holistic language, this divine language, is intended to speak into our subconscious, to speak into and to arouse the divinity that is in us, to evoke these supernatural, divine, magical faculties and abilities and powers that lie dormant in us. So we must think about it, this language, as a language that we are going to speak to ourselves, a prayer, if you will, an evocation, and differing from invocation, calling out, a calling in to the subconscious, to activate the divinity, to communicate with the divinity within ourselves, within the abyss, within the bottomless pit, within the underworld. All right? That's all this was. That's all that language means. Doesn't mean anything nefarious at all. Genesis 11, and the whole earth was of one language and one speech. Before we do that, family, before we go into that, I did have a couple of videos I wanted to show you all relative to this X-Man character, so that we really get this, what they are trying to communicate here. First off, this was the portion that I saw when I was over my brother's house. And then I'll show you another portion, because they had to take this brother Darwin out. Now see, this is a ritual, because this represents our powers, specifically as melanated individuals. Get out! Do it! Now, this last part is the part where they, of course, he got to be the first to die because he represents you and I and our divine power. So they have to destroy him, obviously, because this is all a ritual. But I want to show you, even before I show you that, I want to show you his origin, just a part of it, how Darwin originated. He was picked on and bullied relentlessly for years. And the one character that's doing it, it's a aberrant man that is trying to put his head in the toilet or something like that, says, you know what happens to weirdo freaks who mess up the curve, And he's on his knees with his arm being twisted behind his back, talking about stop it, no. And it was this bullying that brought about the third day. It was this bullying, he got his head in the toilet, that brought about the third day. What day did Jesus rise? Did the Christ rather rise? Mm-hmm. On the third day. This represents the Christ energy, family. The Christ energy is a symbol for your divine, childlike imagination. I want you all to write that down. Christ is your divine imagination, your ability to image yourself into a divinity, mentally, your mental faculty that can change you from a chump human into a superhuman divine being. Now, see, this is our science exactly, word for word. This is our science. Exactly. And it was this bullying that brought about the third day. He's got his face in the toilet the day he realized he could breathe underwater if he wanted to. The day he realized that he could dance underwater and not get wet, family. Come on now. Why hold your nose to spite your face? With the rhythm it takes to dance through what we have to live through, this constant bullying, we can adapt to it. But we have never activated that divine power. Why? Because it was kept from us during this time so that we could go through this process. Now, see, we could go through the fire to reach the absolute pit bottom of humanity and then rise. The day
that's a miracle.
This is our science exactly. The day he realized he could breathe underwater if he wanted to. Now remember, in the story of Yeshua, he was supposed to, like Jonah was in the belly of the great fish for 3 days and 3 nights, so Jesus was in what? The belly of the earth, the underground, for 3 days and 3 nights.
That's correct.
That's the story, ain't it? He realized he could breathe underwater if he wanted to. Hey, Jeff. Hey, you're going to kill him. Let him go. Back off, Tim. He's fine. He gonna continue to try to drown his face in the toilet. He was 15 And these kids had been putting him through hell for 6 years. 15, well, we won't even get to that yet. They have been putting him through hell for 6 years. We won't get into that, but that's very important. So it was understandable when he unconsciously turned the skin of his hands rock hard. Y'all seeing this?
Mm-hmm.
So so it was understandable when he unconsciously turned the skin of his hands rock hard. And beat them into unconsciousness. Is that inversion? Reversal?
Mm-hmm.
That's our magical divine power, family. They never picked on him again, and neither did anyone else. So you're not going to do it by legislating laws, running around crying to who about Black Lives Matter. Damn it, you better show them that your life matters. You can't do it from a human standpoint. We failed for centuries trying to revert to humans. It's time, family, to activate your divinity. Step into your divine power and your divine identity. Who you crying to? Who you begging? We better start to evoke this power of the subconscious within us all, or we gonna likewise perish. It's an urgency to this. Origin featured in Marvel Comics X-Men, Deadly Genesis. They called it Deadly Genesis. I'm going to show you why they called it that. We came here to destroy this thing, family, not to build nothing up. The only thing that we need to do is to build our divinity. And at the same time, now see, destroy this simulated matrix. The deadly genesis, the ability to generate, to operate, and to destroy when it's that time. It's time to invert.
Oh yeah.
It's time to invert the creative process of the Genesis. So we have to focus now again on this tower, And we looked at the film of the Twin Towers coming down, right? And we said that same tower, which related to language, a singular language that existed not only in Genesis 11, but it existed in Genesis, the first 3 chapters. This imagery, this symbol of the tower. All right. Let's begin in Genesis 11. And the whole world was of one language and one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to one another, Go, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, let us build us a city and tower. See, it's a city and a tower, a city and a tower. That's going to relate to, now see, Jerusalem and the New Jerusalem,
Yeah.
whose top may reach unto heaven. Whose top may reach unto heaven. In other words, they were trying to reach the divine. And at that point, now see, at this point, they're referring to a time before divinity was inverted, before divinity was fully inverted and put at the bottom. The serpent was put at the bottom. Are you all with me? So we're not trying to symbolically reach up into the heavens. We are trying to symbolically reach down into the underworld. Are y'all with me?
Mm-hmm.
It was inverted during the fall, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So they
Right.
did this. This is why they had to interrupt. Now, see, it wasn't going to heaven no more. It was being inverted. And the subconscious was put in the underworld, and the ego and the superego was put where? On top. Does it make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
And they were trying to forestall this scattering abroad or this dualism. Now, see, that was going to that was going to that was going to infect and affect the whole world. This dualism, this diversity of languages. And again, we're not talking about languages like that, from a physical standpoint. All of this is symbolic, family. All of it is symbolic. All of it is allegorical. However, it did have corresponding historical reflections and manifestations, which were just that. Now, see, reflections of the energetic. It didn't happen physically at first. The physical, what? Corresponded and was contemporaneous to the energetic,
Absolutely right.
the inversion of this energy. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower. They don't talk to you about the city and the tower. They just talk about the tower mostly. But these things are instructed, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, the people is one. They have all one language, and this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they imagine to do. Go, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad. Now again, this scattering abroad is the bringing in of dualism. Now see,
Clear.
from thence upon the face of the whole world, of the whole earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name called Babel or Babel. We're gonna really get into that because the Lord there did confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad. And we showed how, now see, when the tower was destroyed in the 9/11 ritual, how it fell straight down, compressed into itself, just like it was built straight up, right? It fell straight down. That speaks to the compression of this language, of this unified language that we need to get to. It was, however, in reverse. During the fall, they were still trying to build it straight up. But in the ascension, Nasi, is going to have to fall straight down and compress again into a singularity, into a unity, into a holistic language.
Right.
James chapter 8, I'm just giving you some examples of the tower. And Gideon came to Jordan. Does anybody know what the word Yarden means? Jordan, Yarden. It means to descend down, to descend down. So this is a indication that they're talking about when you see the word Jordan, you see, or the word Yarden actually in Hebrew, it refers to a descent down. And Gideon came to the Jordan and passed over, he and 300 men that were with him, faint yet pursuing them. And he said unto the men of Sukkot. Now Sukkot means temporary dwellings, correct?
Right.
A temporary temple, a temporary dwelling. Give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me. Loaves of bread. All these are important symbols, family, that we've gone over. For they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian. Kings of Midian. And the princes of Sukkot said, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thine hand, that we should give bread unto thine army? And Gideon said, Therefore, when the Lord have delivered Zebah and Zalmunna unto mine hand, then I will tear your flesh. I will tear your flesh with thorns of the wilderness and briars, referring to the physical flesh. All right? What we now see inhabited in the descent. The flesh are temporary dwelling places, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Temporary dwelling places for our
Yeah.
for our divinity. And when he went up thence, when he went up from there to Penuel, all right, what does that look like? The pineal gland,
Yes.
Penuel, Penuel. We're going to get into that much later, but all of this is happening, family, in the body, not in no historic undertaking. It is teaching us through the narrative what we have to do to ascend after the descent, after crossing or passing over the Yarden, the descent, after we get past, now see, a conception of ourselves as descendants
Right.
and begin to what? Think of ourselves as ascendants. What's going to have
Yeah.
to take place? And spake to them likewise. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Sukkot had answered him. And he spake also to the men of Penuel, saying, When I come again in peace, in wholeness, Nasi, shalom, in completeness,
Right.
I will break down this tower. I will condense this language in order to do what? Activate my divinity and what? Thus activate, illuminate myself and my pineal or pineal gland.
Uh-huh.
And he came unto the men of Succoth and said, Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, with whom ye did upbraid me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in mine hand, that we should give bread unto thy men that are weary? And he took the elders of the city and thorns of the wilderness and briars. Now, these thorns of the wilderness, did Christ have an encounter with thorns?
Absolutely.
And what was it? Was it a crown of
Around,
thorns?
yes, it was around
When
his
they
head.
were, when they were destroying his flesh,
Mm-hmm.
when they were destroying the physical temple, when we, Nasik, are destroying this hierarchical temple of man, woman, and the divinity being vertically integrated, we got to
Mm-hmm.
condense all that down and cause it to
Mm-hmm.
fall into one thing.
Yeah, yeah.
This ain't talking about no men that was running around in the desert, tens of thousands of years. This is what's going on, the process that must take place within you. The only way you can see this, Nasi, is as a child, from a unified perspective, from a divine perspective and point of view. And with them, he taught the men of Sukkot, which are temporary dwellings. And he beat down the tower of Penuel and slew the men of the city. Can y'all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Judges 9. Judges 9. And when all the men of the tower, and when all the men of the tower of Shechem, another tower, that has to be what? Taken down, family. Heard that, they entered into a hold of the house of the god Barith, of the god Berit. What does Berit mean? It means covenant. When we when we only think of ourselves, family, in human terms, we make a covenant with death.
Mm-hmm.
We make a covenant with death. As a matter of fact, now see, we insure it, we guarantee it.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
And it was told Abimelech, that all the men of the tower of Shechem were gathered together. Now see, it's just like they were gathered together in Genesis 1, correct?
Right.
They were all gathered together there. And Abimelech got him up to Mount Zalmon. Now, here's this word Zalmon repeated in two different accounts. In Genesis 8, they talk about Zebah and Zalmunna. Zalmon is from the same root. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later as we make further points and expound upon this further, but we're going to move on just to keep the narrative flowing, okay? But this is Mount Zalmon. He and all the people that were with him. And Abimelech or Abimelech took an axe in his hand and cut down a bow from the trees and took it and laid it on his shoulder and said to the people that were with him, what have ye seen me do? Make haste and do as I have done. So he took down a bow or a branch from a tree, put it on his shoulder, and told the people, hurry, do as I have done. Are you all with me?
Yeah.
Can you all see Jesus Christ carrying his cross over his shoulder
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on his way to Calvary, the skull, where
Yes.
humanity was crucified, where the ego was crucified?
Mm-hmm.
And all the people did likewise, cut down every man his bow, and followed Abimelech. That Abimelech means my father the king, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And put them to the hold, and set the hold on fire upon them, so that all the men of the tower of Shechem died also, about 1,000 men and women. And when Abimelech or Abimelech, and then went Abimelech to Thebez or Thebes, and encamped against Thebez and took it. But there was a strong tower within the city, and thither fled all the men and the women, and all the city, and all they of the city, and shut it down to them, and gat them up to the top of the tower. Same imagery, family. Same imagery as in Genesis 11. And Abimelech or Abimelech came unto the tower and fought against it, and went hard unto the door of the tower to burn it with fire. Isn't that what we saw in 9/11? And that's why those towers fell,
Yes.
because of the fire
Uh,
put to them.
Eitai, where you reading from now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading from Judges, the 9th chapter, verses 46 through 53. And we're in
Judges 9. Okay.
Judges 9, 46 through 53. We read from Judges 8, 4 through 17. And then before that, we read
Okay.
Genesis 11, 1
Yeah, I saw that. Right.
through 9.
Right.
All right, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Moving on. And Abimelech came unto the tower and fought against it, and went hard unto the door of the tower to burn it with fire. And a certain woman, watch this, cast a millstone upon Abimelech's head, his skull, and all, to break his skull. To break his skull. Why? Because she knew that this is where it all is taking place at. In the skull, in the imagination. We got to bring that tower down, family. Meaning that we have to condense the language into from diversity in the ascension. In the descension, it went from holistic to diverse and dualistic. In the ascension, it must go from what? Dualistic.
Descension to ascension.
That's correct. Dualistic and diverse into one singular language again, in order for us to
All right.
and reverse, invert the process and rise.
Eitai,
Yes, sir.
is that what the sigil is all about?
This is exactly what they put in our ancestors put in our hands. That is the language,
Mm-hmm.
brother. That is the language.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm pointing you to. That we have to speak to ourselves, speak to our divinity by use of these sigils. I am composing some very powerful affirmative statements that parallel and mirror exactly what we have to do, and reducing them into sigils, into a singular representation. And I'll have those available
Yes.
for us ASAP. But what we need to do as well is to continue to practice to do it on our own and
Yes.
develop our own unique language, our own unique affirmations,
Mm-hmm.
our own unique evocations to evoke this power. That is precisely why those sigils, our ancestors introduced us to that in this moment, because that is what's going to aid us And we have to focus our energy and our intent on that. Continue, please, to practice those things individually
Mm-hmm.
and to get better and to refine the technique. I'm telling you, it's powerful.
Yeah.
So we talked yesterday about Isaiah 5, and now see, we focused on that because, we have to emphasize that we cannot spiritualize this term magic or anything that has to do with it. We can't spiritualize and abstract the term inheritance. And we're using that as an example. When I talk about the inheritance, what's going to prove my divinity is going to be to get my inheritance back, which while I'm in the land of the living. Are you all with me? I don't want to leave that task to no one else. I want to demonstrate that.
Absolutely not.
Right, because the knowledge and the wisdom has come to me, not to pass it over to nobody else to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but for
Mm-hmm.
me to do it. And that is going to be the
Mm-hmm.
evidence, the confirming evidence. Wasn't that the evidence of God's power all throughout the narrative, the Genesis and the Exodus narrative? He said the proof is going to be when I bring you back to the land.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The land flowing with milk and honey, Nasik, as you said, it is a metaphor. It is a symbol.
Right.
We are people of this earth. We are the first people of this earth.
Yeah.
And the first people of this land. I'm not going nowhere else. I'm not falling for that okie doke. It's right. My stuff is right here in America.
Right. Right. So
Well, I'm going to leave and go somewhere else. That's the okie doke.
Yeah.
That's the abstraction. That's the abstraction. It's right where I am. And that is proof. That's going to be proof positive that I can do what I say, what I say I can do. That I have the power, Nasi, of a holistic language. It's not something I'm going to speak to somebody else first. It's something I'm going to speak to myself primarily.
Absolutely right.
And I'm not going to abstract anything about it. If I don't do it, then I'm not the people. I'm all right with that. I'm not the person to do it. Do you understand? But I know that the information is good. I know that the wisdom is good.
mm-hmm.
But the proof that I'm an heir is going to be what? That I get back what was taken from my people over the last 100 years, or what we relinquished. They really didn't take it from us. We relinquished it. And we couldn't hold on to it because we did not have this power of self-protection and instantaneous adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to lose in just over 100 years 20 million acres? Where did it go? How am I going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
It has to be energetic, family. Has to be energetic.
Yes.
So very quickly as we close, either if I say that I'm going to produce choice grapes and wild grapes come up, that's an abstraction.
Mm-hmm.
I can't make choice grapes into wild grapes, cultivated grapes into wild grape. I didn't do it correctly. And I have to perfect my divine abilities. my divinity, our ancestors are not going to be satisfied with anything less.
No.
Let's get further into this idea of tower. Now, we're going to trace this, and we're going pretty quickly to the close, but understand that we will go back over this and nail this down. Luke 13, family, 1 through 4, and then 5 through 9. So we're going to do the first 9 chapters, but we're going to break it up to make some points here.
You said Luke 5 or Luke 9?
Luke 13, 1 through 4. We're going to do the first 4 verses, and then we're going to make a point. Then we're going to do the last verses 5 through 9 and end it. We're going to take a look at this tower. Very important. Luke 13, 1 through 4. There were present at that season some that told him of the Galileans, whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. And Jesus answering said unto them, Suppose ye that these Galileans were sinners above all the Galileans? Now, this is divinity talking now, because the people obviously, was on some human stuff and some moralistic stuff.
Yeah.
You understand? Like, and I'm not talking about the sister, but she talking about, on this, where she talks about how we lost 20 million acres of land, nearly in just over a century plus 8 years, just about. She put the cost of integration. It can't be that. And the same way, in this allegory, these people were talking about an event that happened where Pilate had mingled the Galileans' blood with sacrifices. And Yeshua is challenging their human perspective. Suppose ye that these Galileans were sinners above all the Galileans. Obviously they said, well, they must have did something wrong, or they were stupid. Just like these people that, our ancestors that lost 20 million acres. Must have been something wrong with them. They fell for the okie doke. There's a higher conception of this, a divine conception of these things that we must reach. Suppose ye that the Galileans were sinners above all the Galileans, because they suffered such things. In other words, because they lost 20 million acres in a little over a century. I tell you, nay. But except ye repent, ye will likewise perish. Or those 18. Now, 18 is the 18th Hebrew letter called Sadi. It's related directly to the word Sadiq, meaning righteous in conduct or character. We got to get off of that idea of morality, that you're punished if you're bad, and that you're rewarded if you're good. That's moral. No, you're punished if you're human, period. When you stay human, it's gonna happen to you. You better start picketing with Black Lives Matter. You better get involved in some legislation to get your inheritance back and cry and to cry to these oppressors about some reparations, or get divine and
Right.
get divine
And take
back what is yours. Or those 18 upon whom the tower of Siloam fell and slew them. Think ye that they were sinners above all men that dwell in Jerusalem? So, in other words, get off of this moralistic thing. There's something that energetic that's going on, something Nasi that is above the laws of men and even the laws of the simulated matrix. There's something above that that is controlling that.
Right.
And it's the ego. The ego
Okay.
that is sitting on the throne, our humanity. The word tower, again, as we close, is the word Migdal. Migdal is taken from the word Gadal. And the tower just represents family. Anything that has grown to be important or powerful, anything that has been magnified. We understand that the ego during the descent was magnified, and the subconscious was what? Abased. Abased. So we must begin to think in terms of that the ego was exalted. And as long as the ego, family, as long as the ego is exalted, is ruling on the throne, on your throne, your mental throne, you are powerless and you are unprotected. You are powerless and you are unprotected to do anything. To do anything other than perish, other than become oppressed and dominated and abused. Closing with the Ezekiel 25 through 27. And thou profane wicked prince of Israel, that is the ego that has been exalted, whose day is come. Time is run out for that. Time is over for that. When iniquity shall have an end. Thus saith the Lord God. This is our divine selves speaking to us. Remove the diadem and take off the crown. This shall not be the same. Exalt him that is low, the subconscious. Abase him, or the id, the X factor. Abase him that is high, the ego and the superego. I will overturn it, and it shall be no more until he come whose right it is, that's Shiloh, and I will give it to him. So we're going to get back. We're going to stop here, and we're going to go further into detail about this tower, this language that has been, that was erected to what? Exalt the ego. Exalt the ego, and to keep that in charge, thus guaranteeing our continued oppressed state, our continued domination within the false simulated matrix of reality. So tomorrow we're going to begin here, and I'll open it up now for any questions and comments. This is part 2 of 3, I believe it's going to be, of a 3-part series titled The Magical Divine Power of Inversion and Reversal.
Okay, just to gain clarity,